Welcome back to the Surviving Divorce at 3 a.m. This is Christy Bridges, and I have a guest, Margo Hanne. She's a pastoral counselor who has taught me a lot about relationships. Margo, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful for
Oh,
you.
thanks, Christy. I was really intrigued by my connection to this topic of divorce and suicide, and I can relate.
Mm.
My story goes back decades. I married my college sweetheart. I'd been a Christian about 2 years. He was a pastor's kid. I was on cloud nine.
Yeah.
And within the first couple months, I started to find pornography in our closet. And this was way before the internet. Well, I was very hurt and I began to take responsibility even back then. I already had some anorexic tendencies, and
Mm.
I began to think I better stay thin to keep my hubby around. Well, everything escalated and it actually became a sexual addiction. My own codependency really amped up during that time as well and continued to get worse. So I tried to catch him, I tried to shame him, I tried to do what I could, thinking again that it was up to me.
Yeah.
And trust was really being broken. We lived a double life at church. We were the cute Christian couple that had it all together, but there was this double life going on, and I was actually losing myself.
It sounds like it. I remember feeling like I needed to be prettier. I needed to be more somehow to
Yes,
and it's not about us, is it?
correct, correct. It's not how I can fix it.
Right.
Well, it was time to start our family. Been quite a few years. Did some testing, some surgeries, and realized that I had infertility. Was diagnosed with infertility. My thought, my faulty thinking, was that a family will settle him down.
Mm.
You won't need to do that anymore, and we will finally be the big happy family. So my own identity as a woman was really suffering because I was saying to I'm not enough woman to keep my husband and I can't have a baby. So I was in a pretty bad way. We
Mm.
were able to grieve the ability to have our own biological child and became open to adoption. This all took many, many months, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
It was the best of times and the worst of times because we did adopt a little boy, a precious baby.
Ah.
And within 8 months, we separated because news it came out that there was an affair, that he was having an affair with someone in our church, which was super heartbreaking. My dreams were dashed. It was devastating.
Mm.
We went into counseling together, and I continued in the counseling. I I was a single mom.
Mhm.
My sister moved and visited and moved in, and that was a real godsend. I went into a lot of depression, and um, I began questioning God and my own faith. Well, the day came when the divorce papers arrived.
Mm.
I literally had suicidal thoughts that day. And how I was going to do this was that I would starve.
Oh, Margo.
I looked across the room. There's my precious toddler running. And I came to and I decided I'm not going to do that. I need to live and be the mom that I want to be and that he needs. So it was a huge turning point for me. I became very intentional and dedicated to healing.
I can imagine. So you had taken on the responsibility of your husband's problems. Like you
Yes.
could fix them by being thinner, by being um, more controlling, by solving the problem with a family, which would settle you down, hopefully, and
Right.
therefore you thought
Right.
that it would settle him
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And none of that worked. And now you're at the point where you just want to give up, but you have this little tiny responsibility
Yes.
that is a
Yes.
legitimate responsibility. We can't control
Yes.
another adult, but as parents, we are, supposed to give hope and a future for our little babies, right?
So true. So true,
So, where did
Christy.
you keep going with that?
Okay, sure. So, like I said, it was a turning point. I got into therapy, serious therapy weekly, into a therapy group. I joined two 12-step groups.
Hmm?
At the same time, my Saturdays were run into groups. I joined a recovery based church, which was very, very helpful. And at my very lowest, I clung to God like I never had before. And I began to memorize the promises and develop that relationship with God much deeper. I began to know God as never before. It was growing.
Mm.
And that was a wonderful, wonderful part of my healing.
Oh, I'm so glad you found that because we can be thrown off on our faith by the behavior of God's kids, right?
Yes, yes,
But just like when your
yes,
siblings let you down, you have to recognize these are growing, these other Christians are growing just like we are. And
yes,
God is still there. He's the one that we need to be leaning on. I'm so glad you leaned into him
absolutely.
then.
I am too. I am too, in the midst of the questioning my faith. So you can see that it was a real struggle
Yeah.
in my spiritual growth. So, some things I learned in therapy, a lot, but I'll just share a few of those, is that
Uh-huh.
we're all wounded.
Mm.
And in counseling and therapy, we can go to the roots of that woundedness and
Yes.
have God work there. And that's some of the work that I did and got to the depths of some of my own wounded places. We learned to return the focus of our lives to ourselves. That was one of our codependency slogans. Um, I learned to process, begin to feel again. My feelings were stuffed. I was
Yes.
always full. I didn't feel hunger. I'd stuffed so many feelings. I began to process and feel my feelings, which was very hard. That was very new for me. I also realized during this process that I'm not the victim. I have my
Mm.
part that I brought to the demise of my own marriage. What
Mhm.
was that? What can I change in me? That's what is possible. And I made amends. I did forgiveness work, which I want to say quickly about forgiveness. It is not a quick fix, easy thing. It
Nope.
is a deep process that takes a lot of time, a lot of work, and it is a deep release. It is a work of God in our lives that
Mm.
frees us.
It really does free us, though.
Yes,
Our whole
yes,
future relationships are easier because
yes,
of the
yes,
ability to forgive.
exactly,
So you
exactly.
teach about safe people at
Yes,
Plumline.
yes,
And in this process, you kind of learned that some of the things you had done to control your marriage or to, harm yourself in an effort to please someone else, that those weren't safe behaviors.
correct.
What can you tell us about becoming safer and about nurturing a community of people who are safer than maybe those we've chosen in the past?
Sure, sure. I'd love to do that. Well, I remarried my wonderful husband. We moved to Tulsa. We're a blended family. It was pretty challenging, all the joys and challenges of a blended family. We needed help, and we found Plumline Ministries. And
Yeah.
we got counseling there. I began taking classes. I began an internship, and I'm a pastoral counselor with Plumline Ministries. And I joined the teaching team here, and I facilitate the Safe People class. And
That's where I
that's
met you.
that's where we met, Christy. So the thing I love about the Safe People curriculum, it's this book
Hmm.
by Doctors John Townsend and Henry Cloud, Safe People. And the thing I love about it is that um, safe people is on a sliding scale. It's not I'm safe or unsafe.
Right.
There's a sliding scale, and I'm located somewhere. The only totally safe person is Jesus, and here's unsafe over here, and we all find ourselves on a continuum.
Yeah.
And the idea being become a safer person. Every time I facilitate the class, it challenges me to be a safer person, and that's one of the big things I learned in Safe People.
And what are some of the qualities that we want to kind of move away
Sure,
from or
sure.
towards?
Yes. Okay. So early in the book, there's a few chapters, and it gives traits of unsafe people. Of
Hmm.
course, the opposite would be traits of safe people.
Right.
One of them think that they have it all together versus admitting weaknesses.
Mm.
That would be the safety. Another one is blame others, unsafe, or blaming others.
Yeah.
Safety is taking responsibility.
We always have reasons for what we do, but
Yes.
sometimes we have to recognize we might not be right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. This is the move of the spirit, isn't it?
Right.
As he's healing us. Stagnant.
Mm.
The safe person is growing, not stagnant. This is a lifelong commitment to spiritual growth and healing, isn't it?
Yeah, because stagnation, um, we tend to become kind of a vortex. So we suck the energy out of those around us when we're
Yes.
stable in our comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So growing and
Yeah.
becoming more aware of ourselves and
Yeah.
how we are.
And it changes the dynamics of the relationship. And
Yes.
hopefully people grow with us.
Hmm.
All right, another one is that unsafe people flatter, and safe people confront.
Mm. We can try to be too careful in our
Yes,
disagreements, and we need to
yes,
be direct, right?
yes, yes. Here's another one that's pretty awesome. Stay in parent-child role
Oh, guilty,
versus relate as equals. That was a big
right?
one that I had to look at in my own relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Another one, unstable over time. That's the unsafe versus
yeah.
consistent.
And we all have our ups and downs, but if you tell someone you're going to do something and you always cancel because you don't feel like it or whatever, that's not safe. They can't trust you.
Yes,
So, showing up,
yes,
being fairly consistent is very helpful to make other people's
right.
relax.
Yes, it is. Another one, avoid working on problems
Mm,
versus deal with them.
right.
Coming out of that denial that I described earlier in my marriage, I was just denial like, is this happening? No, it's not.
Mm, right. Let's do one
Yeah.
more. What else do we have
Okay.
on that list?
Okay. Here's another one. Resist freedom
Oh,
or being enmeshed or encouraging freedom and separateness.
I did that. I was afraid of the changes my husband was experimenting with because I thought they would take him further away from me and further away from God. But the thing
Oh,
is, when you try to control someone's growth, someone's learning, then of course they want to get further away from you. When
yeah.
you say, you know what, you're responsible for your relationship with God and your life, and I'm responsible for mine, then we can encourage each other to explore, right? And trust God
Yes.
to bring us where we need
Yes.
to be.
Yes.
So we've got a minute left. And as a counselor, you give your clients work to do. What would you
Okay.
recommend for our people?
Okay. I would recommend the aspect of time.
Mm,
This takes time. Healing and growth takes time. You are worthy
yes.
of the results of healing, and it takes time. As we've talked about, 60% of marriages fail. And one of the big reasons is not taking the time to heal. So be intentional. I remember a vision that I had, just a picture because I'm a visual learner. There
Mm-hmm.
was a room, and it was like God showing me, you've been taking the furniture out. Now it's time to paint it white, and it's brand new. Now you're going to refill the room. You're going to repaint. You're going to redecorate. You're going to bring things in. This is the relational room, the
Yes.
relationship room. And it was like God saying, okay, it's time to be starting over. And
Yes.
I just love that picture that
And
he gave me.
if you bring junk into a junk-filled room, you end up with chaos, right?
Yes, yes,
And so it's worth it to learn how to
yes,
nurture safer relationships. You
yes,
attract a different kind of people as you
absolutely.
adapt to the culture of health.
Yes,
Take your time. I
yes,
agree.
yeah. Well, so I'm just going to share a scripture that I love that I
Yes.
think is really applicable to what we're talking about here today. And I call it God's recycling of
Hmm.
our painful past. 2 Corinthians 1, verse 3 and 4. Praise be to God who comforts us in our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we have received from God. So, this is a gift. This is a pay it forward. This is not just for counselors, this is for all of us.
Yes. Margot, thank you so much. You have
You're
been such
so
a blessing.
welcome. Oh, thank you,
We'll be back.
Christy. All right.
God bless
Thanks.
you.
Take care.